Welcome back to LearnPianoLive.com. My name is Jamin, and as you can tell from the countdown clock, the lesson is about to get started. In case you're new with this, there's a few things I'd like to show you to help you throughout the lesson. So we say that today's lesson is an intermediate lesson, which is a worthless term because everybody is intermediate. Everyone has people who are way better than them and people who are at least a little bit worse than them. So everybody's an intermediate, but what we mean today is that hopefully you have played some songs on the piano before. You're probably not super impressed by them, but maybe you had a friend or two that was impressed by them. You have had some formal training, but probably not much. And so you don't have to know much about music theory or to be a good sight reader or anything like that. But do ask a lot of questions. We'll be skipping over some of the most basic concepts, but we shouldn't get too terribly advanced today. Ask a lot of questions. And in case I didn't mention it, ask a lot of questions. These lessons are always guided and shaped by your questions, and if you're live with us today, there's a couple different ways you can do that. One is in the public live chat, and the other is the Ask Jamin a Question button, where you can ask me a question privately, and I won't share your identity in case you're afraid that your question is stupid. But it's not. If you're in the archives, though, then just open up the survey. At the end of that, there's a place where you can ask your question. I will say I frequently get questions from students in the archives watching a lesson from 6 months ago, and I have no idea what they're talking about. So please try to be as specific as possible. If you're watching this at LearnPianoLive.com, there should be a PDF and an MP3 button right next to this video. The PDF will often have additional video links inside so you can get more in-depth instruction on each of the topics. And if you're the kind of person who likes to print out the PDF so you can make the same notes on your physical version as I'm making during the lesson, now would be the time to do that. The MP3 is just a play-along track so you can practice more after the lesson. In traditional lessons, a teacher is going to actually present some new concept for maybe 5 or 10 minutes every couple weeks. The rest of the time is going to be spent applying and refining those concepts. Well, here I'm spouting off hours of new information every week, so it's totally unreasonable to expect you to actually absorb all of that. Instead, the goal of these live lessons is for you to find some little nugget of something that makes sense, but is a bit of a challenge, and for you to go practice it, because practice is where all the improvement's going to happen. So don't feel bad if you have to leave the live lesson and you find that little thing that you're going to practice. And of course, if I'm going too fast, you can always rewind the live lessons or replay in the archives as much as you want. If these live lessons start feeling random or meandering, it's because they are, on purpose. So if you're the kind of person who wants classical training with a step-by-step method, then you're going to want to check out Kloppel Academy on the website. It's included in your live lesson subscription, so you can do both or either. And the upper levels are seriously hard work, but it's going to take you all the way from ground zero, all the way up to being ready to enter any major music college as a piano major in classical or jazz. And finally, it's most people's favorite. This is application, where we take the past concepts from other live lessons and we see how they apply to an actual real song that already exists. And since there's like 1,000 different ways to play any song, you're just going to work on the version that is appropriate for your level. So that might just mean playing one note at a time for right now. Or maybe you're working on chords or covering the full song. Or maybe you're just seeing how the song breaks down so you can better write and transcribe your own songs in the future. But whatever your level is, the goal is not this song. So even if you don't play the whole entire song, you'll get better by even attempting a little bit of it, and attempt it we shall. Welcome back. So we are covering the song Isn't She Lovely? Your play-along track will sound something like this, and hopefully you were here for yesterday's lesson and or the day before's lesson. So you already have the PDF that has all of the notes and all that stuff on it, and you have maybe already gotten some practice in on the melody. So I'm going to go through, play all the chords first, then I'm going to play the melody, and then we'll talk about how we can stick these two together to create your own cover of the song. The track that you have, the play-along track, sounds something like this. C sharp minor to F sharp to B to E. C sharp minor to F sharp to B to E. A, G sharp, C sharp, F sharp, A over B to E. Then the melody would go. Three, four, three, two. 3, 2, 1. 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 6. 3, 4, 5, 5. 3, 4, 5, 4. 3, 3, 3, 2, 1, 6. 3, 4, 3, 2. Okay, so it might feel to you then like you just jumped in the middle of a lesson and we'd already had like 2 45-minute lessons already on this thing. That's because we already had 2 like 45-minute lessons on this thing where we went through all the chords and all the melody and talked about why it's put together the way that it is. So that was yesterday and the day before's lesson. And so today we're going to just start at that point and try to continue on. So if you're already feeling lost, like, whoa, I didn't know what any of those chords were. What's a C sharp? What's he talking about? These numbers, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. All that stuff was all covered in the previous lessons. So assuming we can start from right there, then let's talk about what notes you could play. So first of all, the key of E is the key that we've talked about now for 2 days. So those notes are going to generally work out pretty much all through the song. Couple little points where some of them don't sound as good as others. But if you just play the key of E, noodle around like you do in Kloppel Academy, I believe level 2 and higher, you're just noodling around in different keys. This is the key of E, and we just want to kind of make up some stuff in there. So maybe just take the melody and like try to add in another note. So just real quick, a couple little hints here in improvising over the melody. We can do little side steps. So if it says 3, you could go 3, 4, 3 or 3, 2, 3. So let me show you some of that. Just the little side steps on the melody. So and right now I'm just doing it on the 3. If I do it on some other numbers. So those are just little side steps on those notes. So just playing the number and then going either one direction or the other. If it's a 2, you could go 2, 3, 2 or 2, 1, 2. Like that, just to mess with the melody a little bit. Or we can do an enclosure, which is playing on both sides of it, either starting like if our goal is a 3, then we want to mess around with the 2 and the 4. 2, 4, 3. So you're just kind of enclosing that note and then finally landing on it. Or 4, 2, 3, or 2, 4, 3 would be the enclosure on the 3. If we want to enclose a 1, we go 1, 7, 2, 1. 1, 2, 7, 1. Now, this time I'm starting on the note. So I'm playing, if my goal is the 1, you can play the 1 first and then enclose it. That's got a different name. It's all, the idea is that you're taking the note and focusing not just on that note, but the one on the note on both sides of it as well. So just taking those notes on either side of the note, adding some enclosures to these things, we would end up with something like... So those are enclosures and side steps. You can hear the melody is kind of still in there, but then every now and then, instead of playing that note, I'm playing a note right next to it before I finally land on the correct the right note. So that is just taking the melody and changing notes in there. And then we take the rest of the key of E, and then we can expand those things out even further by just noodling around like you do. Again, in Classical Academy 2 and 3, most of you are just nailing this stuff perfectly, just kind of goofing around. You're going to be tempted, since you know the melody, to be drawn back to playing the melody, especially on the parts that are more difficult or more odd. Like, I never thought through love would be. There's a chance that, like, in that section, like, your ear just isn't coming up with anything, and you don't know the rest, what the other notes could be in there, and so you end up, I guess I'm just playing the melody, and then you make up other stuff after that. That's kind of okay. If you notice it's the same place every single time, then you probably want to try to look into that and try to figure out what else you could do in that section. But if it happens occasionally, if you start out your solo with, that's fine. That's totally cool. It's fine to use the melody a little bit. So we'll try that, and I'm just going to kind of noodle around in the key of E. This is going to sound best if it's stuff that you can kind of sing to yourself already in your head. So if it's the kind of thing that you hear the note ahead of time and you want to play that note, then that's best. Or the way to get there, in case you're not there yet, is to just noodle around, but try to sing everything that you're playing. And eventually that'll flip back around and you'll be able to play the stuff that you're singing. You'll just hear a melody in your head, and then you'll be able to play that stuff because you've got so much practice connecting what's in your ear, the thing that you're wanting to sing, and what's in your hand, the thing that you're wanting to play. Here we go. 2, 1, 2. Sorry, that was outside the key. So here, that's all stuff in the key of E, just kind of noodling around with that. Now, it might be that you'll catch 2 or 3 things in there, whoa, that was really cool. Just rewind, just exit the lesson, rewind, and go figure out what those notes were, what those numbers were, and I guarantee you'll be able to use those numbers in those little phrases in other songs too. So if there was anything in there that caught your attention, I want to do that, then just go back and steal that one little phrase. You don't have to do the whole entire solo. So that's all of that, just kind of staying inside the key. Now, there's a couple places in the song where you might have noticed we go outside of the key. So that's our C minor chord, and I'm going to go back to our notes here, something like that. There we go. So that's our C minor chord to F sharp chord. Now, already we've got some stuff that's outside of the key of E, because that was the key of E, and the key of the chord F sharp has that note in there. So whenever you have this happening, where you've got a chord somewhere and there's a note that is not inside of your key, you want to really emphasize that note in almost every case. So that right there, the point of that F sharp, that might be something you want to mess around with in your solo and try to catch that one in there. It's going to sound extra special cool like this. So we're on the C sharp. Right there. B. Right there, that's our other F sharp. Then right here we've got a G sharp chord, which we already talked about before how to play that. That chord is that right there. So we're playing A, and then G sharp, and that note C, we can go back to the key of E, that might help. For for you to see that that note right there is not inside of our key. So that's the one that we want to emphasize during that one. So we have a note to emphasize there. Right there, we want to hit an A sharp or a B flat. And right there, we want to hit an A sharp or a B flat. And then right here, we want to hit a C or a B sharp. Don't worry about it. We want to hit that note right there. And then right here, we got that F sharp chord again. So A sharp right there. And then we're pretty much back to the key of E after that. So those are the 4 important points in the song. We've got something important that you want to hit that in your melody and your soloing. So if we take a look at that, we'll just goof around in the key of E, and then we'll hit our A sharp, our C, and our A sharp, and I'll try to call those out as they're coming up. So 1 and a 2, and a 1, 2, ready, here we go. A sharp. Staying back in the key of E. A sharp right there. C. Back to the key of E until we get our A sharp right there. And then back to the key of E. One more time. A sharp. A sharp. C. A sharp. C. A sharp. So you can hear there's those 4 particular points in the song sound especially pro, just because you're hitting something that everyone can tell, wow, that was a really cool note that you hit there. And that's because those are the notes that are outside of the key. So those are the ones that the other people are not going to be playing. They're just going to be noodling around in the key of E, hoping that it sounds kind of cool-ish, but now you've got these specific points where right here, I'm going to sound awesome. Regardless of what I did before or after, that thing right there is really going to stand out, and it's going to sound like I know what I'm doing. So those are the important notes. Other than that, we haven't put any extensions on these chords at all. So let's talk a little bit about that. We've got the C minor chord. We just said C sharp minor, sorry, not C minor. C sharp minor, we just said play that chord before, and we talked about inversions and stuff in the previous lessons. We didn't talk about this note right here. So in the C sharp minor chord, this would be the 1, this would be the 3, that would be the 5. That's confusing because it says 6, 1, and 3 on yours. So we're just going to go like this. Here we go. So all the numbers aside, if this is our chord, that's our 1. It's a C sharp chord, so C sharp is the 1 of the chord, not of the scale. Of the chord, C sharp is the 1 of the C sharp minor chord. Cool. So that's the 1, the 3, and the 5. We are missing this note right here, or this note right here. Might be easier to think about it. This note right here, it'll be easier to play this one. But anyway, 1, 3, 5, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. Then this note right here would be the 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If that's the 1, that's the 3, that's the 5, that's the 7. That's all staying inside of the key of E. So back to here just for a second. Those would be the 7 notes of the key in order. Cool. So every other note would be those right there. Back to our other view. That's the 1, that's the 3, that's the 5, that's the 7. Another way to come up with this is, if you just trust me, that's the 7 now. we just take the 1 and we go down 1, 2 half steps. We'll land on the 7. So we got the 1, the 3, the 5, and the 7. We brought it down an octave. It's the same exact note. We just brought it down an octave because it's easier to play in there. So you'll frequently see me playing a C sharp minor like that, or if I'm playing the C sharp with my left hand, I don't really feel the need to play it in my right hand, so I'll play a C sharp minor like that pretty frequently. Cool. Then on to the F sharp. This is a 7 chord, so the same thing. We could go down 2 half steps from the root of the chord. That'd be our 7, so you'll see me playing that. Now to get really, really crazy, you don't have to understand this next part. That right there is a lot of work already. If you were working on those triads, those chords, then adding in that 7, that's a whole other step. But if you want to, that's the 1, that's the 3, that's the 5, that's the 7 of the F sharp 7 chord. Cool. That's the 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It looks like a 2 because it's just 1 note higher than the 1. We're gonna call it a 9. Just cause we did a whole workshop on chords. That's why, cuz. So, there we go. That's our 9. So I might play the F sharp chord like that, the F sharp 7, or like that, or like that, or like that. Any combination of those. So we go from the C sharp minor to F sharp 7. And then it says B here, and technically, I mean, we needed to talk about the B in the earlier lessons and stuff, but the truth is I'm playing an A over B on all of these. So what I said and what I'm actually doing are kind of two different things. Don't tell the beginners, because in their lesson we just played B all the way through. And it sounded fine, but I like the sound of that better. It sounds more suspenseful, because it is a suspended chord. It's a B suspended chord. Because of slash chords, because we talked about it in the workshop. That's why we're not going to talk about it all right here. So A over B, which is going to lead to E. And then this one right here is actually an A major 7. And again, we've spent a lot of time on building each of these chords. I'm actually playing a major 9, but let's just say that's the chord that I already taught you for this song. Cool. And then we would go a whole step down from the root. Like that would be an A7 chord, but this isn't a A7 chord. It's an A major 7 chord. That's what the triangle is about. The triangle means just go a half step below the root. Don't go a whole step below the root. Don't go 2 half steps below the root. So that's the chord right there. And if you're thinking, wow, that sounds horrible, then you are right. That sounds horrible until you hear a lot of them, and then it kind of sounds cool. Also, if you take that note and you put it up here, then it's not so collidey anymore. So that generally sounds a little bit more palatable than that, just because you don't have that. You still have that. That's weird. I like it. Okay, so that's our A major 7. It's an A chord with the note that's a half step below the root of the chord. And then the melody is I Never Thought. And you're supposed to play that chord right there. So because you got that in your melody, that is the 9. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. That's the 9 of the chord. So it kind of has to be an A major 9 instead of just an A major 7 because the melody's up there anyway. So we're going to say A major 9. There we go. And then the G sharp is a 7 flat 9 chord. Okay, we can do this quickly, no problem. This note right here, if we go a whole step below the root, then we've got the 7. Cool, we're good. So that's a G sharp 7 chord, or an A flat 7 chord. We're gonna put this one up here. And then the 9 would be this thing right here. But the melody is I never thought your love would be. That thing right there. So that note is not the 9, but the flat 9. So because the melody is that note right there, we're gonna end up playing the flat 9. That's the 9, that's the flatted 9. 9, flatted 9, cool. So it kind of like, if you know much about fully diminished chords, which you don't, probably, unless you've been in the workshop or played for a long time, this is kind of a thing on its own. So this chord right here is called a fully diminished chord. So you could play just like a C G flat, an E flat, an A, fully diminished chord, as long as you have the G sharp in the bass or the A flat in the bass. And that's kind of the way all flat 9 chords work. And now we're really, really out in left field. So we won't go into any more of that. But those are the 4 notes that you're going to want to use. Right there. Right there. It's a G7 flat 9. Flat 9. And then C sharp, we already talked about that one. And then F sharp 9, which we already talked about. And then A over B. And then E. And already, if you just work on playing those chords instead of just a simple triad, this thing's going to sound awesome already. Let's see if that's true. 2. And 1, 2, 3. And here's C sharp, minor 7. Try one more time. Not terrible. Not terrible. Now, the next step is going to be maybe trying to play some of those chords in the left hand. And then we'll go right here with a over B. We could play something like that, because that's an A chord, and that's a B. And then E. Don't put the 7 on the E. I'm glad we talked about this. Don't put the 7 on the E. That's going to sound terrible. It'll sound like that. Okay. So then, C sharp minor 7, F sharp 7, 7, 7. We actually put a 9 on that F sharp, huh? There we go. Not a 7 on the E. 7, not a 7. There we go. Those are all the chords that we're actually using. And then eventually you want to play the melody and the chord. That's just switching chords from the right hand to the left hand, especially if you're right-handed. That's a huge deal right there. So just trying to play that thing and then that thing right there. That's a lot. But once we do that, we did talk about that lick yesterday, by the way. So, yeah, all of that stuff is like, now this is starting to sound like a thing you could just like sit down at the piano and play, especially if we had any rhythm. Those are all things we talked about in other lessons. Sorry, that was cheating. But the first couple things were, I think, things you could like at least see what I was doing there. We got the chord thing going on, right? So all that stuff. We're in the key of E up here, and we got the chords down here. Granted, lots and lots of practice time to get that stuff down, but hopefully it makes sense. You feel like you could take that thing and practice that. You practice your melody, and then you've got your own cover going. And because yesterday we talked about playing this thing in 6/8, which was a mistake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that would be kind of be 6/8-ish. Okay, you win. You win. We won't do it that way. But if you have any questions, then please feel free to send those along. Yeah, until next time, good luck. Have fun. Love you. Can't wait to see what videos you send me of whatever you've come up with on this or whatever struggles you're having. If you just run into some roadblock, you can't figure it out, take a video of it, send it in, and we'll try to break it down and find out what's going on. Love you. Bye.